Hi, I'm Bucks County District Attorney Jen Schorn, and I'm here with my good friend, Sheriff Fred Harran, who's not only my friend, but a friend of this office and one of the top law enforcement officers in the county. So I invited Sheriff Harran to join me today to talk about his role as the sheriff and to highlight some of the initiatives he has done presently and plans to do in his role as the sheriff, but also in his prior role as the director of public safety for our biggest police department in Bucks County, Bensalem Township. So welcome, Sheriff Harran.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, getting a chance to talk to you about some of the things we're doing.
Absolutely. So tell us, how long have you been sheriff in Bucks County?
I got sworn in January of 22, ran in November of 21, and left Bensalem a Monday morning, or whatever that was, January 2nd, and then drove from Bensalem to here and took the job as sheriff.
That's wonderful. And so at the time, you got to work with our dear friend, who's presently a judge on the bench, Judge Weintraub.
Yes.
When he was district attorney.
It was a great relationship. I went back with the judge, for a long, started really doing stuff with him back in 2009, 2010. Dave Heckler was the DA at the time, but it's been a long, great relationship.
And then born out of that relationship became our friendship and professional relationship when I was Matt's second in command and had the privilege not only to work with you, but many of your fantastic officers and detectives in Bensalem Township, but now really get to work much closer in this role as county row officers.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand that relationship between the 39 police departments in Bucks County, the park rangers, the sheriff's office, adult probation and parole. Everybody has a role. Certainly with you leading the way, keeping Bucks County safe, and they don't understand, without a strong district attorney's office who has the support and supports law enforcement, that what makes the recipe for a safe community. And if you have not enough salt, not enough powder, not enough, in your casserole, doesn't taste quite as good. And this is an award-winning casserole we have here. I
love it. I love it. It's apropos following Thanksgiving. We're talking about delicious casseroles. But you're so right. I mean, I'm fortunate because, growing up prosecuting in this office 25 years ago with many of the men and women who were patrol officers, then, elevated to detectives, sergeants, and command staff, it's a really unique relationship that we have, this office as a whole, with the 39 police departments and the other county agencies you mentioned. And I think communication is one of the key things that, we thrive from having that ability. You and I can pick up the phone and troubleshoot an issue and know that, we'll be there for one another, and similarly with the other chiefs of police. Yeah, well said. So tell us about some of your initiatives.
When I took the job as sheriff, my big plan was to take a lot of things. I was very lucky in Bensalem. I had a boss, the mayor, Joe DiGirolamo, that is and continues to be extremely supportive of law enforcement.
He's fantastic.
And he let me do a lot of things, a lot of initiatives. For a elected official, he stayed out of the police department, which was really nice. But he supported you. And he let me kind of just do my thing. And I got to bring in a lot of initiatives in Bensalem, did a lot of great work and had a great staff there. The key to that is just having good people working with you.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to, after I was there, I guess like 34 years in Bensalem, I'm like, let me do something different now. I had a great number two that I knew from the day I hired him. I actually just told him this story not that long ago, Bill McVeigh, that I knew he was going to move up the ranks quickly. And then, I picked him to be my deputy, my number two. I knew I was very comfortable leaving. That, you want to leave it in the hands of somebody who's going to do better than you, and that's going to carry on a lot of your philosophies, but then bring a new flavor to it. And he's doing just that. I mean, I couldn't have predicted it any better. I wish I could predict the lottery numbers the way I predicted how successful Bill McVeigh would be.
You're so right.
But I haven't won any lotteries yet. But Bensalem is in good hands. But, so I wanted to take those initiatives and bring it to the county level. And not just do things in Bensalem, but do things from Bristol Borough to Quakertown. As you well know, I don't need to tell you, it's a huge, huge county.
Yeah.
I could literally be from my house, I could be to the Verrazano Bridge or having a hot dog at Nathan's in Brooklyn, New York before I could make the Q-Mart in Quakertown.
You're so right. You're so right.
It's a crazy big county.
And diverse.
And very diverse.
Yeah.
And, those are the, in Bensalem, we really wanted to bring in a diversified police department. So, and it started with Steve Moran when he was the director, and we just kind of, as the words of Emma Lagasse, we kicked it up a notch.
You sure did.
And just did some more stuff. And now I'm trying to do that here in the sheriff's office, make it diverse. But good candidates. I don't believe in just becoming diverse because it's the popular thing to do. You can't jeopardize your office. So we're getting a lot of good candidates, and it just takes reaching out, getting people that maybe wouldn't feel comfortable coming into a department, especially law enforcement, with what's happened in this career, profession over the last, decade or so. There's been a lot of bad press, but like anything else, if one doctor's bad in a hospital, that doesn't mean I don't go to the emergency room.
That's great. You're right.
If you're sick, you got to go see a doctor. When you need help or you need a community safe, you need the police department and district attorney's office. There's no way around it. So you have to keep them both strong and working together. So we're doing that now in the sheriff's office. But we have, for the first time, canine. We just added a third dog. They are explosive trained. They are trained in finding people, trying to find in recovered items. So this is what they do. We have a school resource officer. We're looking at expanding that. We actually brought the Veterans Response Team, the VRT. We brought it from Montgomery County and turned it over to the other side, to Rachel Neff, because it belonged with them.
Can you explain that a little bit? Because having attended the graduation and knowing what was, on the front end put into that program, it's pretty remarkable.
I came on in '87, and I was always, things were already changing. So I can't imagine law enforcement before that. But things were kind of, this is the way you handled call, and you didn't differentiate between person to person. The truth is, everybody's got a different makeup, and law enforcement, I think, has changed and has realized that over the years, from people that are suffering from drugs and alcohol, from people that are suffering with mental health, to veterans that are coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder, and how you need to be able to talk with them. I'm not embarrassed, but I wish I was a vet, but I'm not a vet. I went to college, and then I became in law enforcement in 1987. So I had 6-9 months of just working some part-time jobs in between. But the veterans are very, very special people. It's the reason why we're here on camera today, and nobody's editing our camera.
Right.
Besides, you making a video out of this.
Our freedoms, right.
It's our freedoms, and people don't realize. And our military needs to be cherished, and some of these men and women come back with, I could not imagine going through some of the things they have gone through. And when they're in crisis and they call 911, they need a specially trained officer, someone that can relate to them, someone that they can relate to. So this VRT are officers that have signed up that are veterans. So they have that bond, that brotherly or sisterly bond with the person calling 911. And they work a little bit not extra, but they understand what they're going through to get them the help that they need, depending on their crisis. It could be from domestics, it could be from drugs or alcohol, or it could be from mental health. So it was very successful. Sheriff Sean Kilkenny in Montgomery County was very instrumental in getting his going there. I didn't think it belonged with us in the sheriff's office. It belonged with the department, with Rachel Neff's team. So we kicked it on over to them, and now we're working in conjunction. I have a corporal that liaisons and is doing the training, Todd Kessler. So that's one of the other programs.
That's outstanding. And just having witnessed that class, I mean, men and women who all served our country, who are active in law enforcement, some of your sheriff's deputies, other from the 39 police departments, who then are there 24/7 should there be a veteran in crisis to help address their needs, with the hope that it doesn't result in a criminal arrest, that it results in getting them the services. And it was a proud moment to see that, first of all, the number of men and women in our law enforcement in Bucks County who have served our country and now serve again in this new role, and then to take that unique experience and offer it.
It's extremely important.
Yeah.
I think it's a great program. It's just, and we'll know in years if it's paying off, which I think it will.
I think it is already. Yeah.
But
I think you're right.
It's a great program. We have some deputies that are a little bit more trained in mental health than some of the others, and what we're doing now is So one of my goals, because the sheriff's office in Pennsylvania's a Commonwealth, as you well know, so the sheriff's office in Pennsylvania is different than the Broward County Sheriff's Office
Right.
or the LA County Sheriff's Office. Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Virginia, and Kentucky, the 4 Commonwealths, things are a little different in those states. And one of the things that, I try to do everything I can to assist, not to be local law enforcement, because we don't handle 911 calls, but I want to assist the local cops in whatever I can, because my goal as a county sheriff is I want to make sure that all the local police remain available on the street, that when you call 911 in your community, that you get a police officer quickly. We don't need them, the men and women in law enforcement in Bucks County, tied up with things that my office can do. So one of the things, we have a team of deputies that go out dealing with folks that are mental health issues or that are homeless that have warrants.
Yeah.
Warrants issued by a judge. You know this, right? I have no authority to just say, we're going to pass on this guy or gal today. So when local law enforcement gets a call at 1 a.m., 11 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever it might be, 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning, some of these folks have warrants for their arrest for minor crimes. We're not talking about Pablo Escobar out there. We're talking about some minor criminals,
Right.
Maybe stealing from a box store or something of that nature. So I have my guys go out, try to identify these people, and bring them in during regular hours to get their warrants dealt with so that local cops aren't tied up with this at the craziest hours when they should be on the street protecting.
That's an excellent point. And to your point, to address the warrant, but still face the consequences for their actions.
Can't get around it.
Right, but at least to not, impede the day-to-day operations of the municipal police departments. Right. It's a great point.
Well, that's key.
Yeah. One of the things that I got to witness you really kind of get momentum again for was school threats, school safety and threat assessments, and, making sure that we don't, go backwards, that we continue to make sure this is the top priority, to keep our kids safe. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the things, and to the extent you're able to, some of the things you hope to accomplish?
So we're trying really, because we have great working relationship with all departments, and I'll drop back to April 1999 Columbine. There were plenty of school shootings before Columbine, but Columbine was the beginning of the mass media school shooting, and at that time, Charlie Martin and I don't know if it was Rob Lockerty or Fitzpatrick. I don't know who was commissioner at the time with Charlie, and I don't know if it was Commissioner Marseglia or Sandra. I forget who the other commissioner was.
I was a new prosecutor, and so completely unaware, but I do believe, obviously.
Sandra Miller, maybe.
Yes, I think you're right.
But we had at the time 39 police departments. It was probably about 16 SWAT teams in Bucks County.
Wow, I did not realize.
It was every couple of departments had their own group, and that's just not a good use of resources. It's a lot of wasted money. We don't need 20 million pieces of the same equipment. So after Columbine, we approached the commissioners. We said, hey, we could use some help with funding. And Charlie Martin was really, everybody knows Charlie Martin. He was very fiscally responsible. And he said, yeah, we'll help, but we're not funding 16 departments, 16 SWAT teams. And he was right. Now, this was a big change for us. A lot of egos were about to be bruised. And we got together. I know it was myself and Ken Caluzzi, Jim Donnelly Sr., who's no longer here. I mean, he's alive, but he's not chief in Bucks County. He's retired. So the three of us were on this board that were appointed by the chiefs. And they said, get it down to 3. And we did. We made 3 regional teams that are alive and well today. The North, the South Central, and the Southern team. And that's the operating model in Bucks today. So we've really combined our resources. So with that said, we still have school shootings, God forbid, are not going to be dealt with by SWAT teams. They're going to be dealt in 3 to 7 minutes by the first responding officers.
Yeah.
And we're still a long way off where we need to be, but the towns have good responses in place. If, God forbid, that need arises. And what people don't know is there's been a lot of things that have been stopped in Bucks County over the years, as I'm sure you're well aware. I remember, in Bensalem, when I was deputy director, or maybe director, we had a kid that made some threats against the high school. He was going to shoot up a graduation, and we stopped him that night coming out of his house with a loaded weapon.
Yeah.
And made an arrest on it. And, there was no one, you don't tell people the things you avoid. So this is constant. Law enforcement is always vigilant to these situations, but we have a long way to go. The thing about law enforcement now is the technology is amazing what's out there, and a lot of people are just afraid of it, are afraid of facial recognition. We should call it something else. Call it, if you called it TikTok, they wouldn't be afraid of it. Oh, we're going to install TikTok in the schools.
Right.
They'd be like, oh, that's fine.
Right.
But you use the words facial recognition, and people get scared. We'll come back. I know you want to talk about DNA, but use the words DNA, people get scared. Talk about using intel and artificial intelligence. But these are things that are here now.
Right.
Tools that we can use to really stop some of the stuff. It's like if someone says, how do I prevent my car from being stolen? Right. Well, get a club, get an alarm, get a sticker, park under a light, do this, do that. Will that prevent my car from being stolen? No, not if they want your car. They're going to get your car.
You can take some steps.
But you could take steps to mitigate the threat. And that's the same thing with school violence. We have to take a hard line on anybody that props doors open.
Right.
That should be zero tolerance.
Right.
People that prop doors open and things of that nature. The last time a child died from a fire in school was 1950. Wow. And look how much we concentrate on fire drills and fire drills. You can't burn these building schools down. Right. They're almost indestructible. But we don't do that with school shootings as much as we should.
You know what? To that point, I'll never forget when I put my first grader on the bus the day after Sandy Hook. And my heart was broken. I mean, the whole nation's heart was broken witnessing what those families went through, those children and those teachers. And I remember being terrified to only later learn they were doing drills after Sandy Hook to teach the kids how to zigzag so that they could be less of a moving target. Yeah. Can you believe it? But it's sadly a necessity. But to your point, technology. I also remember about 8 years ago, going on my Disney cruise, and they were using facial recognition to make sure your photos got into your photo platform, for lack of profile rather. You could be on their private island, and suddenly they knew this child belonged to this family, and that picture from the professional photographer ended up in your file, so you could purchase them at the end of your cruise. And so, there is a lot of good that comes with technology, and there's a level of trust, and we do the vetting, and we have to balance so it's not too intrusive. But some of that technology, I know you're on the forefront exploring that for Bucks County schools, and I appreciate everything you're doing in that vein.
There's so much technology, but you're right. You have to be careful. You have to make sure it's not getting abused. There's technology out there now that picks up gun movement. If somebody brandishes a weapon, it's instantaneous.
It's amazing.
But everything costs money.
Yeah.
But, and I know it's easy for me to sit back and say, because I'm not the one that has to vote on raising taxes or anything like that, but you can make water run up a hill if you have the right amount of money.
Yeah, right.
You can harden our buildings. You can make children a little safer. My question is, what's the price of a child dying when it would have been $100,000, $200,000, $1 million, whatever it is? And it's not that much money. We're not talking about millions here. We're talking about in the hundreds of thousands, maybe, depending on. But, you could do a lot of work here with some money in the county. So I see a lot of money being used for a lot of other things. People would always say we get these grants, and if we don't take it from the feds, then Kansas is going to get another fish hatchery. So why not take it here for something safety?
Right.
I mean, the money's going somewhere, so why not take it?
Right, and you really are very aggressive in that endeavor. Well, one of the final things I want to cover, because I got to tell you, I was blown away, not surprised, but again, just kind of reaffirming what I already thought about you being on the forefront of DNA from a law enforcement standpoint. And we had a pretty cool meeting about a week and a half ago. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about it. And again, I just can't emphasize enough, it's a credit to you that this meeting took place. So I'm going to turn it to you.
It started back with Dave Heckler and Matt Weintraub. We looked at doing something back in 2010. Dave really didn't, I don't think he was really up on a lot of it. And he assigned Matt to, excuse me, Your Honor, to see what the heck Bensalem's up to. And that's probably, I don't know if that was the words used by, by Dave Heckler.
Quite possibly.
Maybe he said something else. I don't know. See what Harran's trying to do now. But we got involved in Pennsylvania, there's only three people see it on television, Law and Order shows what they call CODIS, which is the federal database of DNA. And there's only 3 labs in Pennsylvania. One is in Allegheny County for Pittsburgh PD and the county. One is in Philadelphia County, which is only for Philadelphia PD, and then the state police has the one for what's left of just about 1,200 police departments. And our DNA results were not coming back in 18 months plus, if they were coming back at all. And that's really not preventing crime at all, or solving crime. So we looked at, we went down to Florida. There was 4 departments in the Space Coast area, Melbourne area, Palm Bay, West Melbourne, and another police department down there. There were only 4 in the country doing it at the time, where they partnered with a local lab. And make a long story short, I sent a couple guys down. I didn't go because I didn't think this was going to work at first. And my guys came back and they said, "Yo, this is unbelievable." So I went down. Matt had gone with me, I think, the second trip, and everybody was sold. Like, this is something we should be doing. And we came back. We started doing local databasing where we take DNA voluntarily from people. So Pennsylvania is a convicted felon state. So your DNA, basically, there's some exceptions, but basically your DNA is taken if you're convicted of a felon. There are 31 states in the U.S. that are arrestee states.
31.
31. We're one of 19 that are not. We try to get legislation passed. We're hoping again in 25 to put it through again. And there's reasons why it doesn't pass. I think people are just still scared of it. They think it's intrusive. But again, we only have a little bit of time. It also clears and exonerates a lot of people, which people forget.
Right.
But so we started taking DNA and sending it to this lab, and we started processing crime scenes, every single crime scene in Bensalem. And that was in 2010, and then a couple years later, it expanded to 19 more departments. And 6 months later, in July of 2015, all 39 police departments. And we became the first county with multiple police departments to do local DNA databasing in the United States. So that was very successful. And then jump ahead to March of 2017, then President Donald Trump signs a Rapid DNA Act of 2017, and then in July of he signs in January. We purchased the instrument through a grant in March of 17. We were the first police department in America to operate a rapid DNA machine, which means we could do DNA testing in 90 minutes, and we became the first in America to do that. With that, I got to travel the world with Glenn Vandiger from Bensalem, talking about what we were doing here in Bucks County. And then just recently, as you know, just about a month ago, we acquired 2 more machines through Congressman Fitzpatrick. One is right here in the Criminal Justice Center, and one is in Hilltown Township, because we started this conversation about how big Bucks County is. So now we have one in the north, the central, and the southern parts of the county. What's nice is Kansas got one less fish hatchery, and we picked up crime-fighting tools.
Well, I gotta tell you, and you, I'm sure will recall this, because at the time you were the director at Bensalem, you got the machine in March of 17, and I'll never forget the call. Good Friday, April, I don't know exactly the date, but tends to be Easter, the Easter holiday weekend tends to be late April. We had a rape and murder of a 14-year-old little girl. And her cousin in Croydon.
I remember that.
And her cousin her adult cousin was believed to be the perpetrator, and he was a very violent individual who fled on foot. Your officers from Bensalem, backing up Bristol Township, spotted the individual and were able to do great work after he attempted to take his own life. But they recovered evidence, and then subsequently, the detectives that were assigned, my colleagues, the county detectives, in conjunction with Bristol Township and with the assistance of Bensalem, were able to gather enough evidence. But until the rapid results came back, we were not able to make that arrest. And it was Bensalem doing a quick rapid test on the firearm, I believe, swabbings from the firearm, that allowed us to make that arrest, because it was a highly circumstantial case at that point, and we could wait potentially months for ballistics to come back, and we couldn't risk waiting, because this violent sexual predator who committed a heinous murder would have been at large. Yeah. And so it was like, eye-opening in the law enforcement world. So credit to you to have the forethought and now to know that we are covered countywide. And look, credit, thanks to the support of the county administration, to the commissioners to support this endeavor, because it does sound scary, but you and I know it does. It clears people as well as incriminates people.
No, we had to get the commissioners, on board to sign off, and I think people just don't understand it. But they kept their minds open, I should say, eyes and ears, minds open, and signed off on accepting the grant. And we're gonna keep pushing ahead. We're doing some other license plate readers, as you well know, that has solved so many crimes. But what people here we are talking about solve, but really solve equates to prevent.
Right.
So as you well know, I don't need to tell you, there's nobody bigger champion for victims or preventing victims than you.
Thank you.
The person we get off the streets in 90 minutes, as opposed to 18, 24 months, it doesn't give that criminal any more time to commit crime. So the number of victims that we just don't know that number. Yeah. We'll never know that number of how many crimes were not committed because of that individual.
Well said.
So it's not about, everybody in Bucks seems to be on the same page with that. All the chiefs that I talk to, probation, parole, the prison, whoever it might be, it's about preventing crime and making sure that we have one less prisoner. Well, one less prisoner is good too. One less victim, out there in Bucks County, because that's our goal. Here in Bucks County, making it, giving law enforcement the tools they need, working together to prevent crime, and. You know what? Tomorrow the sun's coming up again, and we get to do it all again. And it's a great job. It's a great partnership. It's a great county. Everybody's like, "When are you retiring?" Somebody said to me today, "What are all those marks on your arm?" I said, "Well, it means I've been here too long." That's my year. I think it's one hash for every 3 years. Or whatever. So, I can't believe I've been here. Bucks County literally in 1987 was a stop for me. I was not going to settle in Bucks County. I didn't know Bucks County. I never heard of it. I'm from New York City originally. My parents left, and I was looking for a job after college, and I got interested in law enforcement. That's another whole story, how I decided, let me try law enforcement. I think I'll give it a couple years, and then I fell in love with it.
Here we are.
And here we are, 39 years later, and I don't know what's next. I love being here, and I know of no better county I'd rather work in than Bucks.
Well, I echo your sentiments, and it explains why this team of really impressive individuals from Orange County, the 6th busiest county in the country, flew out to kind of pick your brain on some ideas that they were seeking for their private lab or for their office lab.
You asked that question, I never answered it.
You never answered it, but I made sure we came back full circle.
See, that's a prosecutor. I don't know how many times I was back on the stand years and years and years ago, and I never answered the question. Prosecutor had to give me back.
Well, it was quite impressive, and I thank you for that and everything you have done for this county. And it was a pleasure having this conversation.
Thank you so much.
All right.